Hi, grade 4. Here's Wolf Hollow. Time for you to be out, Bill, I said, unlatching the Dutch door and pulling it open. He snorted at me and sauntered down the aisle toward the big open gate that led to the pasture. I freed Dinah next, as she followed him into the sunlight, her tail twitching. Next, the milk cows, Molly and Daisy. We never named the calves since we had to give them up so quickly, but our milk cows we kept until they had to go. I put out my hand as they lumbered past me, and the second of them planted her big square black nose in my palm for a moment. The hair on its soft is a soft bristle. Had my father not been out searching for Betty, he would have already seen them loose by now. I hoped that the sight of them in the pasture would keep anyone from coming out to the barn to do any chores, though they might come to see who had done it. I wondered if anyone missed me yet. "Follow me," I whispered to Toby, opening the door to the stairs that ran up the middle of the barn to the threshing floor. Ours was a banked barn set into the side of the hill with stalls down below that opened onto the long aisle. There was a cistern that's squatted on a slab at the back of the barn next to the long corn crib. A huge pair of side doors on the top level opened to a lane and staging area at the upper slope. We could drive hay wagons up to the lane and in through the side of the barn, store the big equipment in winter. Work there in foul weather. Big tubs of oats stood next to the grain chutes that led straight down to the mangers in the stall below. Part of the upper level had a very high peaked roof that hung with ropes and tackle for hoisting bales into the loft that consumed the better part of the space along the rafters. It was an old barn with some missing planks and years of dirt and straw that built up on the floor, but it was dry enough and plenty snug in the hayloft, where my father liked to nap on rainy days. I hoped for a nice stretch of dry weather. At the foot of the long ladder to the loft, Toby stopped. He looked at the ladder, looked at me, looked back at the ladder. I started up. "Come on," I said, over my shoulder. "You can wait in the loft until everything gets sorted out." But he stayed where he was. "I don't like high places," he said. I almost fell off the ladder. He didn't look pleased when I started to laugh, so I stopped and I climbed back down. Here was a big man. He was a big man in a black oilcloth coat, 3 guns slung across his back, long gnarled hair and a beard, a black hat, a white face barely visible in the shadow of its rim. A man who'd been through a terrible war, a man who lived mostly on game and berries in a smokehouse in the woods. "You're afraid to climb up to the loft?" I said. He ducked his head, shifted his guns. I chewed my lip. "You live in hill country," I said. "You're high up most of the time." He shook his head. "Not the same." "Well," I said, "you can either climb up or you can hide in the corn crib with the mice." This time, I, too, heard my mother in my voice. Perhaps it was the word hide or the idea of clambering into the corn crib that did it. Perhaps the suggestion that he was a mouse. Toby didn't say. But after a moment, he flapped his hand at me when I began again to climb the ladder. He followed. From the top, I looked back and I saw him climbing slowly, 2 feet on every rung, gripping the side rails. His left hand, knotty and slick with scars, focused on what he was doing. The hardest part was the top. He slapped his good hand out flat on the floor of the loft and dug in his nails. I grabbed his wrist, though largely for moral support. And he crawled off the ladder and clear off the edge of the loft, breathing harder than he had, as we climbed the hill out of the cob hollow. I didn't tell him that it would be harder still to climb down. There you go for now. We'll see you soon, grade 4.